Hey everyone, Self Worth School is back in session. Welcome to today's episode, where, as you will have heard, we are talking all about how to navigate life after grief and trauma. I'm joined today by my awesome guest, Katy Parker. We've had this talk scheduled in for a while now, so I'm really excited to get stuck in. So, Katy, hello, first of all.
Hello.
And yeah, can you just start by sharing a little bit about your story and what led you to specialize in grief and trauma the way that you do today?
Yeah, so I'm an author and a writer and an author, and I live on the south coast of England. Although you might realize that I am not British, so I was born in Slovakia, but my husband is British, so I hence we live here. And I experienced trauma and grief since early childhood. I'm a rainbow baby. I don't know if you know what it means.
Yes, I do.
Uh,
Yeah.
I never had a chance to meet my older brother, unfortunately.
Did you
And
want to perhaps just let people know what a rainbow baby is for anyone that doesn't know?
yeah, so this is a baby. Like I was born after my mom and my parents lost the first baby. So yeah, so I never had a chance to meet my older brother. And I lived in a different European countries, and we don't realize how much grief comes with moving as well, living
Mm.
home and everything. And I lost my mom 13 years ago. So she got cancer when I moved to England. There was lots of guilt as well, because so much guilt comes with grief.
Mm.
And then she died 13 years ago, and my parents were divorced. So my father died before that, but I never really had a close contact with my dad.
Mm.
So I'm an orphan at a very early age. And yes, there was a lot of grief, really. But really, what brought me to do what I'm doing, and I'm working on a book about grief and loss, and as well found the Grief Stories project, where the grievers from all around the world share their stories, is actually that in 2020, I mean, we all know what a year that was, 2020.
Yes, we do.
Just as the year was coming to an end, I had a really bad accident. I was a life-changing accident when really within a second my life changed. And I didn't know, you know, then I was going through grief. It first happened when my mother-in-law passed away now 2 years ago as well, unfortunately. She had cancer as well. And it was only a few months before she passed away. And
Mm.
I observed my husband going through all those emotions. And I was thinking, wow, I cannot recognize myself in all those things, but not like from 13 years ago when my mom passed away, but really from like now.
Mm.
And then I shared this with my psychologist, and she said, you what you're going through is grief. And I was like, how? What do you mean grief? Nobody died in my accident. And she said, yeah, but you can be grieving, you know, on any loss, really, not
Mm.
just when somebody dies. And I was like, oh, wow, this really hit, because I was thinking, if I had no idea about it, obviously I knew I'm missing. I missed my work. I mean, unfortunately, I lost my job as well due to my health problems. I kind of missed the life I had before, but I didn't know
Yeah.
all those feelings I had was actually grieving, was grief. And so I, last year on Mother's Day, to honor my mom, I started the Grief Stories project, and really, as grievers from all over the world sharing their stories, because grief can be feel so lonely, and you think you are alone in this all. And there are people from all over the world sharing their stories, just showing me, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
And there are others, they have just exactly the same feelings. And grief is universal, even though it's very personal, it's universal as well. I'm really grateful because it helped me so much to have this community. And yeah, I as well have my blog, Journey of Smiley. Smiley is, my mom used to call me Smiley because you can see I smile a lot. And so it's really, my journey is a journey of hope and healing. And I share my stories. Then I as well have another project, the PTSD, my story project, where again, like people from all around the world share their stories with PTSD. That as well helped me very much, because after my accident, I was diagnosed with PTSD. And
That's a post-traumatic stress disorder.
yes,
Yeah.
post-traumatic stress disorder. And whilst I learned so much about PTSD from like all the doctors and therapists and so I really wanted to know the human stories behind it. You know, how are you
Mm,
doing like maybe 10 years later or so? So I started that project and I'm so grateful for this as well, because again, this is about fighting the stigma surrounding mental health and as well letting others know that we are not alone, you know,
mm,
is
yeah. Okay, thank you for sharing that story with us. So it's really interesting you talk about what is grief and trauma. What are these traumatic experiences? What's counted as that and what isn't? It'd be great to know or just to talk about that a little bit more, because I think there's probably some quite common misconceptions about
mm,
grief or trauma recovery and about what counts as grief. Because like I said, when you say grief, you automatically think like death, losing someone. But actually, there's so many different ways to that you might grieve, and so much ways you might experience trauma. Referring to my own one, I spoke about this in one of my recent podcast episodes. For me, it was going through IVF and fertility treatment and ultimately not being able to have children. And obviously that's something that you grieve because it's also quite traumatic to go through such things. But what are some of the common misconceptions about grief or trauma recovery that you wish more people understood? What counts as grief and trauma that people might not necessarily realize?
yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions about grief and trauma. Because even when I just remember when I was diagnosed with PTSD, like post-traumatic stress disorder, I myself was like, when I started to study about it more, and so I was how does it happen to me? Surely that's like, we think this only happens to the soldiers, to the veterans, you know?
Mm,
And then really, trauma or grief is not something that discriminates. It can happen to anybody. It doesn't mean that you are crazy or weak or anything like this.
mm,
Really, it can happen in about actually after any kind of harmful or life-threatening conditions, it really can. And so it's with grief, we always think it is, like you said, only after we lose somebody to death. And I was thinking the same until I really learned that what I was going through was grief and that nobody died, but I lost other things like my health and my life as I knew it, and my expectations, my dreams, really everything. My life just looked very different. Second to second, it just changed everything. And so it's really any change, any loss, any change, and even positive. Like I said, I moved countries, and this can be grief as well. You move for something better, you hope so, or whatever reason it is, but you're living something, and you live something you knew, you live your loved ones, and it comes with so much grief. So we often don't realize this, but this causes actually disenfranchised grief that is not so at all about in society. Is really, and unfortunately, it can lead to isolation and
mm.
as well to lack of support, because you think, is there something wrong with me?
Yeah, or I
And
should be able to deal with this on my own, or nobody
those
else is struggling like me. Yeah.
exactly. And those shoots, this judgment. Like, even, yeah, you say about those shoots, it's also really the judgment would put us into depression, because we just think, yeah, we should be down there. We shouldn't be grieving this. We shouldn't be feeling like this. We just a lot. There's so much judgment on our feelings. That's so really, and I want to say, once grief comes, it never leaves. But they say at the time can heal. It's I really think it's not really the time that heals, but it's what we doing with the time,
Mm,
doing in this time really, because you can either decide that, yeah, I feel like this, and there's no hope, there's nothing. And sometimes it feels so. Grief is hard. It feels
mm,
so. It's really choice, like is you have to decide every day you have to choose that, you know, it my story is not over yet. My
mm,
story is not over yet.
mm,
And as well, I think is we think sometimes it's one of the misconceptions. We think sometimes it's the pain that connects us with the loved ones. And when they die, I cannot move because it's a betrayal. So that's not true. This is this dual model. One we can feel joy at the same time. This is totally okay. and it's totally normal. And but we often think I have to feel so because that way I betray my loved ones inside it. And it is not true. No, pain is not something to connect you. It's what you have in your heart, is how you honor your loved ones. This is what connects you. So we really need to be aware of this. And then I think what helped me a lot was as well acceptance. And we often think about acceptance. Oh, if I just accept this, it means like I'm okay with what happens. But no, it's not, because you may never be okay with what happened.
Mm.
It's just acceptance for me is just that I accept I accept my feelings. I'm not going to judge them. I accept that it will be hard days. And that's all right. And it's okay not to be okay.
That leads on quite nicely actually to our next question about like how women can navigate life after grief or trauma when everything does feel different and maybe like even unfamiliar. They feel they're in an unfamiliar body or they're in an unfamiliar life, or maybe because grief and trauma can come around from losing a job, losing a relationship, as well as losing loved ones. Or say you can go through some kind of health shifting accident or get some kind of diagnosis. So how can women begin to navigate life after grief and trauma so that they have more good days than bad days and they can feel like they're moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, really, it does feel very unfamiliar because it is unfamiliar. It really, you don't know it until you have experienced it. So it really is so. And everything what is unfamiliar scares us. So our brains were wired for predictive things, living with familiarity. And suddenly we have a change. And but as I said, we can rewire this. It's a neuroplasticity that you can rewire your brain again and say, okay. And really, it helps. We human, we are social creatures. So it really helps us to be in connections with others. Like I said, after I created the grief stories on my the PDs, my study project and everything, and I connected with others, I didn't feel that crazy anymore. I
Mm.
thought that it is just totally normal. And really, connections help us. And when I say connection, and then maybe lots of people go, yeah, but other people just don't understand. And I understand this, but there are places where people will understand you. And yes, we make those errors. Maybe not everybody understands us and stuff, but we are able to find people who do understand us. We just don't give up. Just look for those. There's support groups. There's our grief stories community. There are places where people do understand you. And so I think there's really been in a community where, you find support and your support circle. This really helps. And, as well, I think those things break us and we go, no, I don't want to be broken. And yes, we are afraid to be broken. But you know what I can tell you? Being broken really helped me to rebuild myself, gave me the opportunity. I can rebuild myself. Yes, I lost the identity, perhaps the identity we think of. But me as a Christian, I know that I'm a child of God and I always will be, no matter what. But yes, we perhaps lost the identity we think of. I had a job and now I don't have. What am I now? And I learned from mistakes. And I can tell you my story. Like I was clinging to onto these things because I was thinking that my only word is really in what I'm doing and serving others. And perhaps that's what God wants me to do. That's God's calling. I need to do serve others and stuff. And I really disregarded my body and what my body was actually telling me. And I really learned it. That wasn't really, that was a sabotage. It wasn't really honoring my loved ones or my losses or whatever. That was sabotaging myself.
Mm.
And putting yourself first, really, it's not selfish, it's necessity, not just for yourself, but for others as well around you. So when you ask like what helps, we recently wrote a blog post on my Journey of Smiley blog where I asked those to participate in a grief stories series who shared their grief stories, what is helping them? And they exactly said things like asking for help is not weakness. It
Mm.
is courage because you need
Yeah.
to, it takes
Being
so much
vulnerable.
courage to
Yeah.
ask, you know. And
Absolutely.
even so, we think, oh no, I need to be strong. I need to do it all myself. And I shared actually about this as well in a book that I co-wrote. I think about because I was thinking my mom was my role model, and I was thinking, oh, she never asked for help, and how strong she was, and so
Mm.
I need to be like this. I need to. Well, sometimes those really does unhelpful beliefs does keep us stuck in that. I was like, I need to be like this, and really learn, as I said, to really almost being so ill today, I wasn't able to even walk or sit or stand or anything.
Mm.
I really need to ask for help. I
Yeah.
really need to. I don't want to sabotage my body anymore. I don't think that's what God wants us to do. Definitely not. And if He loves us, I need to love myself as well. And I can forgive myself as well. Because, like you said, with the grief, there's so much guilt as well.
Mm.
In my story, as I moved away, there was so much guilt because my mom got ill. Then, when I moved to England, my mom became ill, got cancer. And I felt so guilty for not being there. And I later on, when she passed away, I didn't make it home on time. And I lived with this guilt for so many years, really. And there's one thing we need to realize. I haven't caused this, and I
Mm.
cannot change this. And my presence there while my mom died, yes, would be so amazing for me. But I will not change the outcome. Yeah, I will not be able to. So it will really, we need to give ourselves forgiveness. I think that's so important. And I
Mm.
think when we let ourselves to feel all those feelings and stop judging them, then the healing will happen. So really
Mm.
what people need to do, just let yourself to break down and be broken and feel whatever you want to feel. But then pick up those pieces and say, I don't want to stay here. My story is not over yet.
Lovely. And that leads on really well, actually, to our next question. And obviously, the subject of the podcast is about self-worth and becoming your happiest, most confident self. And what role do you think self-worth and self-compassion, which, as I say, you've spoken a bit about there, what role do they play in healing? Well, how does having a stronger sense of self-worth with the process of like grief and trauma?
Yeah, I think it plays a huge role. At least, like when you read my story in the book as well, you will say this. Now, it wasn't until I started to love my body that things started to change. Until I started to love myself and
Mm.
gave myself forgiveness, that actually I find, at least for me, it's easier to forgive others who did hurt me so, than forgive myself.
Yeah.
I acknowledged when I was in that situation, I didn't know what I know now. So we really have to remember this. I didn't know my mom is going to die, or so I didn't know all those things. So we need to really forgive ourselves. So yeah, it really does. And then just really listen to my body really made such a big difference and realized that yes, this pain, I cannot fight against it. I
Hmm.
need to learn to live with it.
Yeah.
And one thing I actually want to say, there is pain, grief and trauma is so painful, but and you haven't caused it and so, but it's your responsibility to heal. And really, it all starts really with this self-worth, really. It is, I was always thinking, as I said, I shared it in the book, like, I am worthy because I do this and this. And we often connect our worth to the outside things like, oh,
Mm.
no, that's how. I realized I was just people pleasing and it comes from trauma. And really, I am not worthy because of this. You know, I, as a Christian, I believe I'm worthy because I'm God worthy, because He created me and He loves me. So I need to love myself, as I said. And oh, really, it's not because of what I do. And because then what? Now I don't do this. What am I less worthy? No, I don't think so. It really starts with loving ourselves
And
and
knowing that we deserve to be
yes, we deserve
happy.
to be loved, to be happy.
Yeah, and we deserve
And
to be loved, and we deserve that
and
compassion and healing. Absolutely.
yeah, and it was my birthday recently, and I found it quite hard to celebrate birthdays recently after my accident because I would think, oh, like you say, those shoots. Oh, I should be now so much further, and I should be doing now this and this, and what I'm doing is the healing. But I actually gave myself the biggest gift I could, healing. No, and I wasn't aware of it. It is such a huge gift to myself.
Mm.
And I was thinking, you know what? I'm my physiotherapist, and there is a sign on a wall. It says, you're exactly where you need to be. And I
Mm.
was like, you know what? I am not late. I am not behind, and I'm not lost. And so I am exactly where I need to be. I am healing. And this is the most amazing job I have to do, really, is to heal. And I am really grateful I get this healing, but it's all, as I say, it's a choice. Because your aid healing is not easy. It's hard, but it's as well so hard to stay stuck where you are now. And you can really decide, as I said, pain is not a connection. I want to heal, and I can move forward with always honoring loss. I can move forward with grief. I can move forward with all those things. And I want this not just for myself, but for others as well around me. Because when I feel happier, I think around me people feel happier. And if I feel better, people around me feel better. And so
Yeah.
really, I think
Yeah, it
self-love,
starts with you, doesn't it? Absolutely.
yeah.
So, for
Very
someone
important.
listening who's perhaps in the middle of their own grief or healing journey or trying to recover from some kind of trauma, what are some small but powerful steps that they could take right now to support themselves? What would you, obviously, we've mentioned about getting help and anything like that, but is
Yes.
there anything else specific? You spoke about your book. Are there any techniques or anything there that you would suggest to
Yeah.
someone to like specific actions for them to take?
Yeah. There's one technique actually that really helped me, and I write about it in the book. Actually, I mention it is about the downward arrow technique. So my yeah, it starts with my story why it's helping me so much as well. Because so downward arrow is actually it relies you to find out your core beliefs and what your really core belief is. Because sometimes
Mhm.
it's so hard. Just as negative thoughts come to our mind, and with guilt and with grief and trauma, there's a lot of negative thoughts. There's so many negative thoughts come into our mind, and we sometimes don't even know that behind this is perhaps something else.
Yeah.
And this technique really helps us to find because we dig deep over the questions. And you can read about this in my book. Yeah, in the book I collaborated on, or as well on my blog, Journey of Smiling, a bit more. And actually, with this technique, we ask questions, we dig deeper to find our core belief. And so I define now I'm not a failure, or I'm not stupid, or I'm not. Behind this was just really just beliefs that they were formed in childhood, because most our beliefs which actually come
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
are
Yeah.
formed in childhood. And it's just shape our perception and how we see ourselves and how we deal with things as well, how we deal as well with grief and with trauma and all those things. So this really helped me a lot. So I would really, that was one of the things that was really helpful. I would as well say, as I say, reaching for help and then being in a community. And so this really helped. There are other steps for me as a Christian. Prayer was a really big one. And really, one of the things what it started I started this in a hospital after my accident was writing.
Mm.
So writing really helped me. I used to write when I used to live in Slovakia a long time ago. And then I had a very big gap not writing at all. And then after my accident, when I ended up in hospital with fractured vertebrae, and I yeah, I couldn't walk properly and nothing. So I was really just in my bed. It wasn't COVID, as I said, in 2020. I asked my husband to bring me actually pen and paper because I couldn't have a visitors. And then I as I said, I suffer PTSD as well after my accident. And all those feelings, I needed to put someone down. And because I couldn't have visitors, I was thinking, okay, what I have is my writing. I need a pen
Mm.
and paper. So I asked my husband to deliver this to the reception, the hospital. And I just started to put those thoughts and those feelings on paper. And so much clarity writing brings. And really, this helped me a lot. And I now as well have a journaling when you can download on my website. And there's journaling prompts that help you as well find this clarity. And so writing really was amazing. Yeah, I'm so grateful for this that I was able to do this. So I think, just, yeah, give yourself love and compassion and let yourself feel whatever
Yeah, and allow that stuff to
emotions
come out.
yourself
Absolutely.
and everything. Yeah, it will just come.
Okay, we ask all our guests to give like their key takeaway for the lesson. So if people came away from listening to this episode today, what's like the one key thing that you would want them to know about navigating life after trauma? What's the one key like phrase or sentence that you want them to take away from this
Mm.
conversation?
I think it's okay not to be okay. But we definitely one. I say that my blood calls Junior Smiley, and my mom used to call me Smiley because I smile a lot. But I as well had to learn that it's okay not to be okay. Because sometimes with the smile, we kind of think we wear it's almost like a safety
Yeah.
mask, isn't it? Did we wear the because we just pretended I like, the question, how are you? Oh, I'm fine.
Mm.
But are you really fine? And I so I had to learn therefore that it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
But on the other side, it's okay to be okay as well. And that's
Mm.
okay as well whilst you're going through grief and trauma. It doesn't mean that you have forgotten your loved ones or that you know that it's not important whatever happened to you or so. Or as we were talking about acceptance, that acceptance just means that I'm fine with whatever happened. No, it doesn't mean. It just really means that you are actually moving with grace, with compassion, that you, yeah, I think that's what it means to me, actually.
Yeah. So it's both, it's okay to not be okay, but it's okay to be okay as well.
Yes, yeah, because joy and grief can coexist. So yeah, definitely I believe so. And I can see this as well in my life. Just like my therapist, she asked me, so is your grief actually smaller now? And I was like thinking about it, it's like, no, it's not small. I miss my mom just as much as I miss it. I miss my life that I had before. I miss it. But I think I just grew the things around it.
Mm.
The people I meet, their experience they create, like all those things. And don't be afraid to go for it. Don't be afraid to go for it. So that's really one of the things. And yeah, I think, as I said, that pain, yes, the pain always will be there. But we don't have to be prisoners of that
Yeah.
pain. We don't have to be.
That's such a lovely thing. And also, we can find our purpose through that pain as well.
Yeah.
Okay. And we also ask all of our teachers, our guest teachers, for a little kind of simple exercise or something that people can take away. So you've mentioned some great things. You've mentioned like your downward arrow technique, which people can find either on your book or perhaps online, because I know you said it's one that people can use generally. But I know you mentioned your journaling prompts online as well. And I wonder, is there like a favorite one, or is there any kind of grounding practice or reflection prompt that you would love for people who, anyone listening that might want to reconnect with themselves and their strength after loss or trauma?
Yeah. For me, as you mentioned, the ground technique was, and there's a breathing technique as well. So for me, it was the
Hmm.
breathing technique, actually. So that really helped me a lot because it just helps us to actually calm down, really, and the breathing. And the one I was doing was the box breathing. So it's like you count to four, you breathe in, then you hold your breath, then you breathe out, counting to four, and then you hold again. And I know there's different techniques, but the box breathing was like once practiced and it helped me a lot. And even like I mentioned writing and you mentioned journaling and so I think that's really important. But like to your breathing techniques before that or whatever calms you down. And then go on my website and download the my journaling prompts. And this is where you will find out why writing is so important, how it can help us, and all these things. But even if you don't do this, just do one thing. Take pen and paper, and I ask you, how are you today? And just
Mm,
write down honestly. Be honest. Be honest with yourself, with your feelings, because we find it sometimes so hard, even for ourselves, to be honest. So just be honest with yourself. Just write down how you feel. Cry if you need to cry. I don't know, hit a pillow or whatever if you need it. Do whatever you need. Just don't stay there. Write it down and then pick up those pieces and say, my story is not over yet.
lovely. Awesome. Oh, Katie, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our conversation and just thinking about, say, how you can apply it to so many different areas of your life when it comes to grief and loss and trauma. So we'll share the link to your journaling prompts and your book as well, in case anybody's interested, and perhaps your blog as well on your website. So if anybody listening feels like they would find that stuff useful, you'll be able to find that in the show notes. But yeah, just a massive thank you, Katie, for coming on and sharing your story and sharing your lesson with us today. It's been amazing.
Thank you for having me. I'm just so grateful I could be here with you. And yeah, just go and heal yourself. You deserve the best. And thank you so much for having me.
Lovely. So, everyone, I hope you enjoyed that episode. I hope you found the positivity and value in talking about loss and grief and trauma. I really appreciate Katie's honesty and wisdom in reminding us that being resilient and navigating life after grief and trauma, it's not necessarily about having to bounce back about things or judging us for not being where we think we should be, but more about learning to live life fully with what's changed. There's space for both things. So if you'd like to connect with Katie and explore her work further, I'll share some links here in the show notes, including her book and resources. And remember, if you're navigating your own grief or healing journey right now, whether that's the loss of someone, a loss of a job, a loss of a relationship, you don't have to do it perfectly and you don't have to do it alone. Small steps of self-compassion and self-connection matter way more than you think. So until next time, keep growing, keep showing up, and remember that you deserve a life that is as awesome as you are. Have a great day.